Malliotakis, she just met with NYPD leadership to learn more about the problems that police are facing. Congresswoman, good to see you. Thanks for joining us today. So what did the NYPD leadership tell you? What are they looking for in order to combat the surge of crime across the country?
Well, it's clear that the rising crime is directly related to policies that have been put in place by Mayor de Blasio and the City Council, and also Governor Cuomo and the state legislature. The bail law that was enacted last year by the governor is the #1 reason why we are seeing crime soar across almost every single major category. This is something that, the stats that they gave us were alarming. First of all, 97% of those that are victims of shootings are Black and Latino. Secondly, when it comes to bail laws, 9 out of 10 individuals who are found with an illegal firearm are released immediately right back onto our streets. 50% of those that actually use the firearm and shoot someone are being released back onto our street because of that bail law. So that, coupled with a bunch of other crimes that are eligible for immediate release, have led to the astounding numbers that we're seeing with violence and other crimes, assaults, robberies, grand theft auto that we're seeing in our streets. And then on top of that, you have Mayor de Blasio and the City Council that cut 1/6 of the NYPD budget. They're tying in the hands of our police department. They're taking away their qualified immunity protection. So this is certainly all a recipe for disaster. And last night in New York City, you saw, both on the Democratic side and the Republican side, that they picked individuals that they felt were law and order candidates or would be most likely to restore public safety in New York City. And I said that speaks volumes, because even on the Democratic side, 77% of New York City Democrats said they want more police on our streets and they want the funding restored.
Right, although the second highest vote getter in the New York City Democratic primary yesterday is somebody who supports defunding the police. So you probably heard Rich Edson's report about what we're expecting to hear President Biden say this afternoon. A lot of this addressing violent crime across the country is going to center around guns. Certainly there is a lot of violent crime that is committed with firearms, but are guns driving crime, or are criminals driving crime?
Absolutely, criminals are driving crime. And one of the things that the president could do is actually secure our border, because if you speak to the Customs and Border Patrol agents, they will tell you that there is gun trafficking occurring at our southern border. So that's #1. #2, we go after the illegal firearms. #3, we need to give the police the resources they need to do their job. He needs to talk to mayors like mine, Bill de Blasio, and convince him to restore the plainclothes unit at the NYPD that was responsible for going after those illegal guns, responsible for going after violent criminals, and they dismantled that. 500 detectives taken off our streets in New York City due to defunding. What does that mean for justice for families when you're investigating crimes and trying to get to the root of the problem? These are the things that we need the Democrats to focus on. They can't just always use this agenda to fit their own narrative. They have to actually change the way that the Democratic Party is viewing our police and being derogatory toward them, and stop the defunding of our law enforcement. Every major city where you see this spike in crime, Democrat-controlled city.
Yeah, and in terms of how the Democrats view it, you mentioned the mayoral race there and the primaries yesterday that were held in New York City. The top 2 vote getters were Eric Adams, who is the former police captain there from the NYPD, as well as Maya Wiley. Let's listen to what they said about policing. Listen here.
How dare those with their philosophical and intellectual theorizing in their classroom mindset talking about the theory of policing. You don't know this. I know this. I'm going to keep my city safe. I know this.
We are going to stop the hiring in the next 2 police cadet classes. As I have said, we have a police department that is bloated, a $6 billion budget.
So you said that the majority of New York City Democrats voted in favor of policing, but there you have the top 2 vote getters. They are separated by about 10%, maybe a little bit more, who have opposing views of policing. But what does that say about potentially the future of New York City?
Well, look, again, 77% of Democrats that had been polled said they wanted more cops in the street. I think Maya Wiley gets that remaining percentage and those numbers actually match up with the people who would be viewed as anti-cop in our city. Thankfully, I think that she hit her ceiling last night, and she's not going to be picking up more votes in the second round. What I hope is that Eric Adams stays true to his word and truly makes public safety the #1 priority should he be elected. And Curtis Sliwa, who is the founder of the Guardian Angels and spent his career deterring crime on the streets of New York City, is a great candidate for the Republican Party, particularly when it comes to this issue. And so whatever the outcome will be in November, I do believe there's going to be a step up from Bill de Blasio. And as somebody who's been at the forefront of this fight to restore public safety in New York City, I'm going to continue to push and make sure that we restore our plainclothes unit, we restore funding for the NYPD, federal government continues to give the resources our city needs to fight crime, and we continue to push for secure borders.
All right, well, we'll keep watching it. No question about that. Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis, good to talk to you today. Thanks for joining us. Meantime, big news on the